Welcome back, everybody, to Oz and Agatha. Happy Sunday morning. Sorry for the late start here. We are talking Agatha All Along, episode 7, and the Penguin, episode 5. Today, welcome, everybody. I also have a few starting up topics here that are related to the show, without talking about the show in general. So that is what we will start with. That's what we're going to open up with today. Beginning with a reveal, something that might be news to some of you. It certainly was news to me. As I get this queued up here, we have all been infatuated with Kristen Milioti's performance as Sophia Falcone, but what you may not have known is that she has wanted to play a Batman villain her entire life. Now, we're going to go ahead and share the source of this, and I'm going to share the audio. All right. Now, if you're not an ASMR person, whisper warning. Okay. So here we go. This stuff. Does this work for you?
Batman and Flash, the Shadow Batman.
What is
a nice texture for a cover. Wow, that's really nice.
I don't get ASMR.
HBO's The Penguin was also a real pinch me moment. I've been a Batman obsessive since I was 7. I've wanted to play a Batman villain my whole life. Sophia Falcone is a character I really loved playing. Loved is an understatement. I'm obsessed with her. She wears some pretty fabulous things. We wanted to make sure that her hair looked like someone going into battle, which was very fun to figure out. I also got to run around in giant fur coats with guns, and that was very cool.
You know, sounds pretty good. I'm not going to play the last minute of that, but there you have it. From the woman herself, had been obsessed with being a Batman villain since she was 7 years old. That is something that this dweeb can certainly relate to. So let us know your thoughts in the chat. We definitely want to hear your thoughts on this next Penguin-related story. Now, if you're new here, we begin every episode with the Agatha review and rundown. So I thought that while we're just doing the news updates, let's flip that on its head. Let's do Penguin news first. And this next one I find to be very interesting. I'm going to be honest with all of you. It does not make a whole lot of sense to me. Fed up with Falcone is what we're calling this one. John Turturro says he declined to return as Carmine Falcone because he thought there was, quote, was a lot of violence towards women in the show. Now, that is interesting, considering that so far, John Turturro's body count in the Batman is significantly higher than anything we have seen Mark Strong's version of the character do in the Penguin, right? Correct me if I am wrong here, but as memory serves, we see the scars on his face. We see him attempt to strangle his own daughter there. So for my money, I can't really understand the take that there was a lot of violence towards women in the show. Um, it's implied. I'm not saying it's not there. It's certainly there, but it's all more implied than it is where John actually you see him do it. So um, I'm going to pull up the article here as we talk about it a little bit more, just so you can see the source for yourself. And it's just a weird take from me in general. It doesn't really matter, even if it were correct, right? Like, it's a weird take because here's what we need to walk it back a second. Here's what we were told this entire time. We've been told, oh, Mark Strong was cast due to a scheduling issue. It made perfect sense, if I'm being honest, right? Dude's a busy man, couldn't make the scheduling work, happens all the time. You have a pro when it comes to playing a mob figure in Mark Strong. So it's a natural fit there, and he has played the role well. So everything we've heard is that, okay, this is a scheduling issue, just didn't work out, but the show is great. And everyone that I have heard speak on the Penguin loves the show. It's gotten almost nothing but positive reviews. And then John Turturro hops in here like he's Oscar from accounting and says, actually, I didn't want to be in the show because the show is gross. And I don't believe it doesn't represent me. This doesn't represent me. Um, what a weird take, dude. You're an actor. I don't know if you know this. As I put it in the Discord, I don't believe that Brad Pitt is known for scalping Germans in his free time. Yet I have seen him play a character where he demands that anyone who works for him would be scalping said Germans. So I don't know. I also don't know him to be a bit partial to the Periwinkle Blue Boys. But hey, we're acting here, John. So I really don't understand what the point was of this, especially when the show is doing well. And it's not like there's this big outcry of, oh my God, do you see how violent the Penguin is? This show is disgusting. It's awful. Oh, the humanity. Won't someone please think of the children? At least John Turturro is thinking of the children. So again, I don't want this to come across as me being against anyone who denounces violence towards women. That's not the case. I am also very bold take. Get ready. I am also anti domestic violence. I'm anti violence towards women. Yes, easy win there for everybody. But you're playing a role, and I think it's very weird, considering that this guy has played a murderer before. He's played all kinds of different roles. So why is it that this one is below you? It's beneath you. So I'm not sure why our boy is fed up with being Falcone, but there it is. Violence against women, too much of it in the show. Let us know what your thoughts are there. And again, join our Discord. I'm sure Stu will hop into the chat here eventually and send that link. And if you want to discuss this with us live as we're adding these stories, we are very active in our Discord when it comes to placing these topics that we believe we're going to talk about. We'd love to hear your takes from them as well. And speaking of, what up, Harls? Good morning. It is still morning where I am, at least. I saw Anthony Hopkins straight up eat dudes in that one documentary, Silence of the Lambs. Exactly. I don't understand the take here. That it's part of the job of acting to do and be the types of people that you would never be in real life. I believe that's in the job description somewhere in there. So, hey, works for us. If I'm being honest, and as I have been on previous episodes, I see this as an improvement. So insert smart Hulk meme here. I see this as an absolute win. So I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry that you feel that way. We will still think of you fondly as our initial Carmine Falcone. But before we dive into the Agatha review and rundown, I have one more piece of news that relates to Agatha. I've got my coffee over here as well. I got to get that filled up here. We've got Paul Bettany weighs in on Agatha All Along and reveals Vision series begins shooting in 2025. So, a guy who has been known for being a bit coy when it comes to not revealing things, not giving away too much in the MCU. Paul Bettany says they're going to start in 2025. A release date, reportedly, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the Vision show, what we believe will be called Vision Quest, is set to be on Disney Plus sometime in 2026. And that is something that will come up later as we break down the Agatha episode. Have some theories here. I know I saw Headbug in the Discord has very similar thoughts to this. So we will be talking about Vision and Vision Quest a little bit today when we get to the theory crafting portion of Agatha All Along, which is as good as a transition as I'm going to get this morning before I drink that coffee into Agatha All Along, episode 7. That is what we're talking about first. I have this broken down here in my notes with some general thoughts to get us started, and then we have our rundown where we'll go through. So, spoilers alert! Right now, going forward, we're going to be spoiling both shows. If you're completely brand new here, I like both shows. Go watch them and then get caught up. We've got the playlist. Get caught up and be ready for us next week. You've got a few hours to get ready for the next episode of The Penguin. But here we go. I thought episode 7 of AAA was phenomenal. Maybe my favorite. Every time this show just like one episode ago, it was like, oh man, here's this focus on this one character. Now I really love this character. Boom, main character. And if it weren't for the way this episode ends, I'm sure there'd be a lot of people who would walk away from this being like, Lily is my main character now. This is my favorite person. This is the person I want to root for. And I really appreciate when shows do that with their side characters. Same thing, whether it be a book, a movie. I think you do yourself a great justice and a service to all of your fans or whatever, your readers, your audience, if you treat your minimal and side characters as if they are a main character somewhere else. Like, you don't have to always go super deep into their backstory and all of that stuff, but as the creator, it might be important for you to know it, even the parts of the story that don't get out there, for you to know their backstory and to just see how much attention throughout the runtime. And we've talked about this in earlier episodes as we were catching on to what Lilia was seeing and what she was doing. But this is the episode where they really lay it out for you in case you've missed any of it. And I just think it's been really well done, a really well written storyline so far. This episode in particular, I thought was written very well. They've been foreshadowing a lot of it. It wasn't always the most subtle stuff in the world. Like, you just knew she was going to be dressed up as a stereotypical witch in her trial. We just all knew that was coming. I do love that somehow Agatha is the inspiration behind every evil witch we've ever been told about. That is a great little piece of lore there. And beginning the episode with the fall and having the whole theme, or one of the themes, being about how time is a flat circle, and so having it begin and end that way, I thought was just overall, again, just the way the whole episode was put together. I enjoyed that a lot. And my last note of what I liked before we just go A through Z on this bad boy was that the death reveal managed to be a cool moment for my money, despite the fact that we all knew it was coming. I thought that was a great design choice to have uh, the Mistress Death skull, but only be the bottom half of her face. I thought that was really cool. I mean, obviously, we see her at one point when they go back to the flashbacks, where we've seen her as a skull um, when they're all running off in a previous episode when they're facing their fears, and you see Lilia go into a room of what we now know was the corpse of her mother, and then you see this hooded figure standing behind her mother, and it's got the skull for the face, and obviously now it's locked in. That was Rio, so you get your comic accurate rendition of Mistress Death. If that's what you were looking for, you get it in this episode. But something that the MCU, or now Marvel Television, runs into all the time is you're paying these very recognizable faces, these well-known actors, the kind of actors that can say, "Hey, what I do when the cameras are rolling, that doesn't represent me. So I'm happy to take your money and play a bad guy, even if he does bad things. I'm happy to do that." Those kind of actors, a lot of times people want to see their face. Hence we have all these moments where Iron Man is just like, taking his helmet off to talk. Same thing with Spider-Man. You have all of these masked characters that are inevitably unmasked all the time. So I think it was a good choice. Obviously, people love Aubrey Plaza, and so still having it clearly be her and be recognizable as her, I thought was a good design choice. The way they had the reveal match the tarot card, and I do have a critique here, but we have the knife in one hand symbolizing death, and then of course the flowers in the other hand, because again we're talking about that cycle. Death begins the new cycle of Earth. I don't need to go through of life of Earth of life. I don't need to go through that. I'm sure you all are up to speed on your circle of life science stuff, but it was a fitting moment. I liked the reveal. However, my little nitpick is, how the hell did everyone not know who this was? And what's up, Headbug? Welcome. Glad you're here for this portion of the show. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Um, Even when Lilia she's like, Rio is death. There's a moment when Rio is first brought in and they ask, "Are you a green witch?" And she says, "No," more like the green witch. All of them are pretty intelligent and knowledgeable in the ways of witchcraft. You would think that they would know that the Green Witch is death itself. And especially, you would think Lilia would know that. So it is kind of odd to me that it was played as this big reveal, just because the audience has known the entire time. But in even in the show, it's been, to those characters who know these things, it should have been very obvious to them, even if it was revealed to the audience at a certain point. So I don't know. Minor critique. It can't be all sunshine and rainbows here, gang, or I will lose my curmudgeon pin. I know usually I do enough work the 2 times a week we're live with James to keep it, but I got to make sure I am not too positive here on Sunday morning, or it'll be taken out of me. It'll be taxed out of me here on my fantasy football slate this afternoon. I agree with you, but also didn't clock that link. Yeah, no, that's fair. I agree. Like, at the time I didn't know that either, but it just seems like they should have. So a bit minor plot hole there, but we'll run into the rundown now, where I will, as efficiently as I can, walk you all through the plot, and we'll stop and talk about the moments that either did or didn't work for us. But now would be a great time, if you have some of those thoughts yourselves, to fire away in the chat. Let me know what you were thinking about this episode of AAA Agatha All Along. So, broad strokes, what we're getting here, Lily is hopping around different points of time in her life, not just since they've entered the road, but even having a moment where she is able to go back and visit the head of her former coven, her mother. And it's very interesting to me, the idea that she's physically back there, or at least that's her perception of it. Because some of this all could be, we don't know the ways of the road. These all could be hallucinations of sorts, or maybe not all, because the things that happen on the road clearly happen on the road, because we've seen them previously, but we don't know 100% that Lily was able to jump back all those hundreds of years in time to see her mother, but that's her perception of it. Her mother recognizes that it's an older version of her daughter that has just taken over, and they start having that conversation. And very fittingly, uh, Lilia says that she had never been good at tea leaves, and her mother points out what will essentially be um, Lilia's journey throughout the episode, and kind of confirming what her path has been this whole time, that she has talked herself into not believing in her power, kind of wanting it to go away. It was inconvenient. She didn't like it. I mean, inconvenience putting it lightly. I mean, she saw her whole coven dying and was unable to prevent it. And so then she becomes sort of the begrudging here. It's like that Wyatt Earp, the old Western tale of. I mean, it's not Western. It's the it's the story circle. It's Joseph Campbell, right? It's the old. I do not accept. I do not want to go on this journey. I'm telling you no, and then reluctantly you get dragged into it and find your power and come out the other side, returning back to the home world as a different person. I skipped about 9 of the 12 there, so forgive me, but we have this moment where she's told, kind of like, you do this, you don't want to believe in yourself. That's not really true. You're stronger than you think you are. And so she'll hop between there and different moments when she's underground with Jen. And that's told to us out of order. So Jen knows everything because Lily has already told her. But at this point, as we're hopping around with Lilia and her POV, we don't know what she doesn't know yet. So that's, I mean, that was a well acted back and forth, I thought. But Jen has her own arc that she goes on that gets sort of uh, resolved here at the end of the episode as well. Let's see, we've got a comment here, so I'm going to pause. We haven't gotten too far into the rundown here, so good time to see what Headbug thinks. I think the thing that stuck out most for men in this episode, or for me in this episode, is Lilia finally being able to handle or become more in control of her gift, which was her real intention for the road. And that perfectly encapsulates what this episode is about right there, because we have a meanwhile, so forgive me, maybe not cutting this thing scene by scene, but don't worry, that's we have that for the Penguin rundown, so don't worry. This one's a little difficult to do that with, just because of the nature of the episode. But we have Billy and Agatha in the actual test room. They're in the trial, and they pick up the tarot card. At what point is this very loving and probably nice guy, good person, dumb idiot teenager gonna stop picking things up in these rooms? How many times you just go, oh, this is probably a thing. Do you want to think about it first? You know there's going to be a timer. You know that something will probably trigger the event, the trial to start. Why is this kid always just picking shit up like, oh, I've seen tarot before. I wonder if this is the test. Maybe come up with a plan and then pick up the deck. Okay, all right, back. I'm hopping out of my curmudgeonness. All right, so we have Billy and Agatha trying to figure out the tarot reading. Billy has some experience, so of course he tries. Based on people who are more into this and more knowledgeable about the tarot subject than I am, go check out a Screen Crush or a Heavy Spoilers or a New Rock Stars, where they've got a team and they've done that work. You are told that maybe Billy misreads some of these things. He's not quite a pro yet. I mean, he's got that spell book to help him out. So he has good intentions, but gets it wrong. Agatha never has good intentions and doesn't believe in so many of these things. It's kind of odd to me how she's such a powerful witch, but belittles and just disregards so many aspects of it. It's a very weird part of her character, where she's just like, this is bullshit, this is nonsense, and she just starts slapping cards down at random. Wouldn't you know it, that doesn't go well. And we have a moment where, oh, well, I guess I should point out that while this is happening, knives are falling from the ceilings. Yeah, I'm not doing a great job of setting up the stakes. So every time they get it wrong, I corrected myself here. A sword is falling down from the ceiling, and also the ceiling itself, with just nothing but swords coming down, is slowly pressing down upon them. It's very Indiana Jones if you are trying to visualize it for yourself. And Billy says, "I wish Lilia was here." And then this is when we start to get our crossover into uh, what's presently going on and how Lilia is hopping back and forth. So eventually, we do get Lilia and Jen returning to the trial. This is because they are underground. They're still on the road. They're underground, and due to all of this hopping around, Lily is able to, at one point, when she wakes up, she's right back at the beginning of where they fell through. And she's able to quickly tell Jen everything that's going on before she forgets. So that is able to keep them on the path of looking for these shelves. They hit a point underneath, which is one of my favorite little moments where we don't exactly know what happens, but they have a path set in front of them, Lily and Jen, where they can go to the left, where it's still this dirt underground road, or they can go to the right, where it looks like there's an old failed city public transit system that not only is yet another weird way for these two shows to stay parallel every week. It's freaking me out. But more importantly to this show, as a little nod, Easter egg to our beloved Sharon, Mrs. Davis, when they first get down to the road, she said, "I'm a member of the Westview Historical Society. I wouldn't expect there to be anything down here but our failed public transit system." So seeing that little glimpse of a subway leads me to believe that that was a potential exit. But again, with the road, perhaps it would have been a trap. I don't know if you can conventionally just walk off the road like that. Based on the song, I would say, and just the mud, I would say that probably wouldn't have worked out too well for them. But it was a fun little nod. Again, it's one of those shows that they clearly had a Kanban or something. They had like a giant, massive table with a million index cards and strings running to everything. It's just the attention to detail was paid here. And here on Dweeb, there have been so many shows we've had to talk about that aren't paying attention to themselves as well as this one has. That even a little moment like that's not really a big deal in the story. It's got me appreciating it because I've been starved of such practices recently. So let's get back into it. As Lily is hopping around, she gets the pieces of information that are going to help her solve this. And when she finally shows up, they still don't quite have it right. And obviously, they're going to have her do the reading, but they think that the reading should be done for Billy. Now, this is a understandable mistake considering the stress of the situation. At at this point, I think the group is aware that this is maybe more Billy's journey down the road than Agatha. We were first kind of maybe set up that Agatha is going to be the lead here, but now with everything that has uh, come out with Billy, and now that he's been unleashed, he knows who he is. The sigil's been broken. It's really seeming that the road is Billy's journey more than Agatha. So it makes sense that they would want to do the reading for him. But gang, again, we've been doing these trials, and they've all been kind of pointed specifically. So you see yourself dressed as Glenda the Good Witch. Everybody else is all the stereotypical witches that you hate. It's all very like this is a very obvious that this is Lilia's trial. So it's lucky that she eventually figured out that she would be doing the reading for herself. But we really get to see her talent there as she visualizes every card. She know what's coming before it pops out, and we get now. Help me out here. I'm gonna read from my notes, but make sure I don't miss one or get one wrong. When she does the reading for herself, she sees that Jen is the future, Agatha is the obstacle. Seeing Alice as the past, I think, is their way of confirming that that death will hold, and that there's not going to be any coming back from that one. And then is of course a moment towards the end where she will tell Agatha and I quote, "When she calls you a coward, hit the deck." So obviously that's going to come into play at a certain point when we have our final standoff, which I hope to God, please God, don't let this show end with two witches throwing different colored energy balls at each other. If I want to see that, I'll go watch Dragon Ball Z, man. I'm begging you, Marvel, come up with a better way to visualize these hocus pocus spooky powers. You were kind of okay in Doctor Strange, but even still, you just ended up with Wanda out here just throwing energy at a bunch of other wizards, and it could be so much cooler. So, for the love of God, please don't let Agatha end the way WandaVision ended. But I digress. We have Lilia doing the reading. She comes to understand that this is the end for her, that she is going to fall. It's time. I mean, she alludes to it throughout the episode as well, right? Talking about how she would have these visions when she was young, and then they went away, and now they're coming back into her. She feels that it's the bookend of her life, that this hasn't happened to me since I was a child. This must mean the end isn't near. And so she has that realization and decides that, you know, this is her coven. This was what she needed. These were who she needed. This whole time she had been running from something for 500 years, and it was finally time to turn and face it. And she does that. And to me, that was pretty epic. We also have that moment with Jen, I alluded to earlier. We've seen the growth with Jen. Jen starts out as a character who only cares about herself. She's there because of her ability to, through potions and whatnot, stay young. She's very focused on her own beauty, potentially has bound herself, right? She talked about being bound by people with no powers. So it's very possible she's going through sort of a parallel growth arc that Lilia just went through. But we see some of it accomplished here when in previous episodes, Jen had no problem just making a beeline for the exit. Wasn't necessarily concerned with who got out. In the music episode, even Agatha calls her out. She's just hanging out in her own protection circle, just like, no, I'm good. I'm good, guys. And here at the end, when we all can feel what's coming and we know the big sacrifice is about to come, Jen is like, there's no way I'm letting you go, or I'm not going before you, is what she says, something along those lines. So even at that point, Jen has now eclipsed into another character that views this as a coven. And part of that is kind of so sad, because I think outside of Billy, I mean, you got Agatha and you have literal death. So, Alice is already gone. It's like all the good people in the coven are growing with it. And I just, at least for Lilia, she gets to end on a high note, because I don't know if this is going to end well for Jen. She's in a pit of snakes at the moment outside of Billy. So we have all of that. And Jen goes through the Iron Maiden, which was lighted green, which we'll come back to. The Salem 7 pop up. Lilia has her moment where I love this. She's doing the this was where it got like a very good nerd moment, where it's just like it's almost stereotypical, where you've got, I've made the DBZ reference already. So you've got Goku or whoever, all the enemies are circling around and they're just being cool as hell, doing a weave, doing a little, we're going to talk and we're going to bring it back. It's actually going to be relevant to what we're doing. And then she flips the card and boom, everybody's tumbling. I will say, I think we only see 5 bodies of the Salem 7. So they're not completely knocked out yet, but Lilia gets to go out like a hero. And right before it's all over, you see her slip one more time to say goodbye to her mother, which is again why I wonder if any of that is real. I don't know that she really did get to go and talk with her mom. I think it was just sort of that part of her psyche that needed to lead her. Maybe it was the road itself needed to lead her where she wanted to go. But I will pause there. There's the rundown. I see we've got a bunch of chatters. So welcome everybody. What up? We got Advent. We got Darth Maul in here. And Shadow Humor. What up? What up? What up? Shadow says I was thinking about watching Agatha, but then I remember I have a tiny bit of self-respect. I love it. You do you, Shadow. I love it, dog. Oh, good burn on me. But Headbug says, sorry, Kevin, it's going to be purple and green energy balls with the ladies sounding like they're playing tennis. Oh, good. We get the, you got to grunt. There's more power in it. Ask Dwight Schrute. This was about the subway, I believe. Headbook says, I think it was intentional to remind us Mrs. Davies was part of, and is probably going to make a return. Fingers crossed. Everybody's favorite 70s mom, bring her back. Darth Maul says, I thought maybe you guys decided to talk about Oz 2013 movie for some reason. And what up, Evan? I see a body. Headbug says, where the hell did Rio go in that episode? She had her moment and then booked it. Yeah, I think the whole next episode is going to be about her. And that's been interesting. You don't see her actual death. Sorry, squirrel. Let me go back to that one. Where the hell did Rio go in that episode? She had her moment and then booked it. I think with the Green and the Iron Maiden, it's going to be all about her in the next episode. And it's, I guess that fits, right? They've once we got to the Billy reveal, it's been more that every episode is focused more around the one character. So I imagine this next episode is when we get all of the Rio stuff, or at least whatever we're going to get. Now, I don't think, for the love of God, while we're begging for things that shouldn't happen, let's not retcon Thanos. Let's leave Rio out of Thanos, please. Maybe that's an otherworld story you want to tell some other time, but we're so close to the end now. We haven't really ruined anything, have just added on to it. Let's not do that with Rio. So I don't know where exactly it's going. And then to back to Lilia, you don't see her actual death. That's possible. I have mixed feelings about that one, because I think if it's not a final death, that would be a disappointment for me. It was a weird thing to say. All right. I'm not a sicko. All right. I don't, but it's sort of like the stakes. I'm not sitting here just like, oh, we need more deaths is what I'm getting at. But I feel like if you have a character die and then come back, it's just sort of, I don't know, it would maybe water down that awesome moment. Like, that was a sacrifice. That's what would it be for Lilia that she could come back for? That would be a better moment. I think it's probably the high note that she would go out on. But I mean, admittedly, it's one of my favorite characters as well. So it might be the kind of thing where it's like, I don't agree with that decision, but if they bring back a character you like enough, you're like, well, I'm glad this character's back. All right. Game of Thrones fans, how did you feel when they brought Jon Snow back? I have no idea. Luckily, I was so far behind on that show that everyone hated it by the time I was going to watch it. But I don't know. Interesting one to think about. What we got from Darth Maul here on second thought, putting the word Oz in the stream title was super on point, considering what this Agatha episode was. You know what we call that one? Darth Maul, that's failing forward right there. You know, that's, you'd rather be lucky than good, but it does actually fit. Shadow Humor, you're based for that. Yeah. You know what? Here, I love it, dude. I love it. It's his opinion, and it is based. You know what? And let it be known, I am not above your mockery. All right, you guys want to make fun of me while we're out here making fun of other people's work? Of course, it's fair game, baby. So you might just make me blush a little bit, Shadow, when you get me good. We need a Captain Boomerang movie. I've been seeing this on Twitter. Is that Captain? No. Who's this? It's this child hero. I've been seeing this battle between, like, I think it's Omni Man or Homelander versus. I know the bad guy's name is Robbie Rotten, and it's this child superhero who's like powered by apples or something. And now I'm just seeing all of these highlights about how overpowered this dude is and how he can take on any villain in any universe. And now I need to see it in a movie. But that really wraps it up for what we have as far as the Agatha rundown. We're headed towards the end here. I've already told you what I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see the purple and green energy balls, and I don't want to see Thanos brought in as Mistress Death. But other than that, so far so good. And we'll be wrapping up Agatha here soon. And won't that be fun when we have our Agatha focused episode? We talk just about the season. That's close to Bonnie Rotten. I have no idea who that is, Advent. I've never heard of that name before in my entire life. I don't know what this is in reference to. Sporticus was it's Sporticus. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Harles. Man, really did 3 forward flips to open a door with the yo-yo. I did see that one. That's fantastic. And Darth Maul asked where James is. I believe he is an early bird. He is traveling this weekend. This will be a good time. We're in the intermission here, gang. We'll be talking about Penguin here momentarily. But so James has not been here for Oz and Agatha throughout. He will be talking with me when we do the Penguin series finale. After we're gonna continue going on. Maybe I'll tweak the name, but we'll continue to review all of the Oz episodes, and then once it's done, once each series is done, we'll have an episode solely dedicated to each series where we talk about it. And James will be here for that, to talk Penguin with me, and he will be here in extra time this week. I think we're going to be aiming for Tuesday early evening. We'll get it on the calendar as soon as we can, but just a note here, I'm guessing 5 or 6 Eastern. We're going to have a bonus Han shot first. So you're going to have, with this, 4 days in a row, actually, of live streams, because we'll have the regular Monday show, our bonus Tuesday, because we've got some interesting Star Wars news that we think everyone would have some fun with. And it's going to be a very Neil-centric segment going on in there. But we want to separate that from the regular episode on Wednesday, because we're talking about 5 episodes of Rebels already. So bonus show for everybody. And we've got some videos on the way too. So a bunch of stuff coming. You'll get to see a lot of both of us. Lazy Town scared me. All the adults wanted to get the kids. Dart says, Kev, which 2025 MCU project are you most looking forward to? Captain America 4, Thunderbolts, Ironheart, or Wonder Man? Honestly, probably Captain America 4. In some sense, I'm looking forward to the Thunderbolts, but not in the way that Marvel or Disney probably hopes it to be. I am very excited for James and I to do a preview review on the Thunderbolts trailer, and that'll be a lot more like the Dune Prophecy one, where it takes damn near an hour, because we got to talk about a lot more than just the preview. But because of all the pre-existing characters and how that gets brought in, I'll be interested in Thunderbolts. But as far as most looking forward to, I'm going to root for Captain America 4. I've heard that it wants to be more like a Winter Soldier style project. I think at least at one point in time, Winter Soldier was a favorite of a lot of Marvel fans. I know that I liked it. I don't go back and revisit a lot of the old Marvel stuff for just my own personal choices. I don't need to see Iron Man fight Jeff Bridges. I don't really go back and watch too many of those very often. I will soon, because we're going to be reviewing every damn superhero movie ever for this channel at some point. But Winter Soldier was one that I liked that I feel like I would go back and watch and still enjoy it. So I'm rooting for Captain America 4 and the Thunderbolts. Was Thunderbolt the Russian thing? So that'll be Thunderbolts is going to be probably so bad it's good, right? It's Thunderbolt Ross, the Red Hulk, who's now played by Harrison Ford, who could not give a shit about Marvel or probably even acting at this point. I don't know why. Why are you casting Harrison Ford in that role? Different rant for a different day. But it's essentially like the bad guy Avengers advent. So yeah, there's gonna have the Russian people in there. There's gonna be probably Taskmaster, I think, Black Widow, Black Widow's dad, agent, U.S. agent. What do they call the Aldi brand Captain America? Is a U.S. agent, the bad guy, Kurt Russell's kid. And we'll have who else is in there? Elaine from Seinfeld is in there. She's the boss lady. We'll probably have what's her name? Carter, I can't remember the comic name now, but she's the one who turns on Cap. So I don't know. Thunderbolts, it could be cool. It's like a Suicide Squad anti-hero Avengers thing. So I don't know. A lot of the IPs that were used to introduce those characters didn't do it for me. So I'm hoping that my love for their comic book counterparts will get me through it. But I think it's going to be one that we have a lot of fun talking about, and maybe more fun talking about it than we do actually sitting down and watching it. But that's just me, and I'm a negative Nancy, as we all know. 12-hour long tier list video. Let's go. Yes, ranking every Marvel movie ever. That would be fun. Hell yeah, chaotic nonsense should be fun. Yes, US Agent is correct. Let's go. Oh, also Ghost, antagonist of Ant-Man 2. Thank you, Darth Maul. Heck yeah. Good to hear. Would be nice if Captain America 4 or something else brings back Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. Oh, okay. I don't mind that one. Bringing back that long forgotten Ed Norton, Ed Ed Norton Hulk. Man, could you imagine? I don't know if we've talked about that before on this channel, so forgive me for another tangent. But could you imagine Ed Norton, like the least collaborative actor, maybe of all time, trying to be a part of this MCU? Like, could he have fit? There's no way Ed Norton would have stayed in that role as Mark Ruffalo has, right? Being kind of a side actor in a lot of pieces. Could you imagine seeing fucking Ed Norton in She-Hulk? Like, there's no way we wouldn't be through Thanos yet, because he'd still be rewriting scripts as they're shooting him. Just a wild like, what if there's a parallel universe out there where uh all of this is being rewritten to where Bruce Banner is the center of the MCU, and it's just all a big Ed Norton passion project. I hope I never get transplanted into that parallel universe, but I'm sure it's out there. And now it might be time for me to switch over to Penguin once again. Thank you, chat. You guys are awesome. You make this show a lot easier to do when James isn't here. So I appreciate you all for hanging out, and hopefully you're having a good time. Let's get into the Penguin. First and foremost, getting out of order here. I love the Danny Elfman hints in the score when Oz finds his new lair, which is very reminiscent of a different Oswald Cobblepot's. Well, our boy is Oz Cobb, let's not forget, but it reminds me of Oswald Cobblepot's lair in Batman Returns. And so when he has that moment when he's like, "Oh shit, Vic. Hey, Vic, I think this might be our new home." And it's playing those hints of that score. Loved that. I thought, and my note. Sometimes I have to laugh reading back my notes because they're shorthand. Stupid to have his hitman tell Maroni who sent him. Oz's pride strikes again, and that is something I wrote on this page several times. Oz, kind of an idiot this episode. Definitely a villain, right? Spoiler alert, by the way, for going forward. But holy hell, this man makes some very bad moves in this episode. Smoking big one. Yeah, it gets a little wild with the flames, and we'll be talking about that again. We talk about his pride getting to him and him making stupid decisions. We will get that, and uh, he steps all over Oz this episode, or sorry, he steps all over Victor this episode when asking about his mother, something that he previously told Vic to not accept from other people. And when we pair that with what happens with Eve at the end of this episode, I think they are very much setting us up for the fact that Oz is going to kill Victor. I think that is how this ends. I think that's what's going to cement our hatred of Oz if he is going to be a part of the second movie. I still think there's a possibility this whole thing ends with Oz done and we have the new Gigante family or the Maronis or the Gigante Maroni family, whatever. There's maybe he doesn't come out of this live, but if he does, it will be as someone that we all hate. And Vic is not going to make it out of this alive. I don't believe so. And my final notes, which I've already kind of mentioned here, with the pride he takes in burning the Maronis, he's certainly the bad guy now, and that same pride almost costs him everything, which then leads them to finding the new hideout. I love that location. And those are the general thoughts before we get to this final page. Goddamn, this rundown, it takes a minute. When you think about the episode, you think, oh, not a ton happens, but when it's part of the job to run through it and make sure you don't miss anything, they actually move around quite a bit this episode. So we begin with the boys burning down Oz's car while he once again talks about Rex Scalabrini. And here's my new rock stars heavy spoilers moment. For those of you who don't know, Rex actually means king. So, it's like this guy, he's like one of those dudes who obsessively worships the Roman Empire without understanding any of the complex issues that were going on back then. Like all those fake stoics on the internet that just heard Andrew Tate say something stupid one time and are like, oh, yeah, that's me, dude. That's my life. Oz has this infatuation with this former benevolent godfather figure that he clearly sees himself as, even references the car as a chariot. They're doing some stuff here with him visualizing himself as that person. And it's not going to end well for Oz, right? We remember how it ended for Rex. I doubt Oz will be as beloved when it's his time to go. And weird that he can't see it, right? He's literally the scummiest person of all time. And he keeps telling himself that, oh, one day I'm going to be like Rexy Scowls, just helping everyone in town. Yeah, right, dude. He's a scumbag. Oz and Sophia will both go with the fuck those dudes, they never made us approach when trying to build up their crews. I mentioned that note now because they do it later in the episode. So in case I forget, we do have our two new established crews, which there may be some more consolidating by the end of the episode. But Oz finds Taj, the Maroni's son, from his TikTok post. Now, here we are again in a moment of curmudgeonry. That's a word. Don't look it up. It's my time to not really give the show any flack, if I'm being honest. My critique is with everyone on the internet acting like it's such a cool feature that Oz found this guy on TikTok, as if it's like, wow, this is so genius, dude. They just established that TikTok is canon in the Batman universe, as if it's some new groundbreaking thing. Like, oh man, nobody's ever referenced social media on television before. Wow. Like TikTok is old news at this point, right? I have grandparents and aunts that are on TikTok, and there is a certain generation of people for whom any short form content is a TikTok, whether they watched it on YouTube or they watched it on Instagram, Facebook. Nah, that bad boy is a TikTok. And newsflash, most of those people are old. So the idea that an old man wouldn't know what TikTok is and wouldn't immediately think, where can I find this young son of a bitch? Hey, he's probably got a TikTok. Like it wasn't that huge of a move for me. I thought it would have been a nice, like, oh yeah, haha. Hey, you found him on TikTok. That tracks. But everywhere I went, it was like, oh my God, they use TikTok. I think TikTok paid people to make a bigger deal about that scene than it really is. That's my there's actually a ton of aluminum foil inside this hat. So I've been seeing me wear it a lot more lately. Just for another week or two. All right. How many days we got? Anyway, not important. So TikTok saves the day. Well, not for Taj. They find the young man at his tattoo parlor. I need those headphones, by the way. These aren't too bad. Not too bad. But I could absolutely hear someone getting shot in that room over there if I had these headphones on. So I think I need to know where Taj got those. Maybe probably outside of my budget. But there's an interesting little moment later where they use those same headphones while they have Taj tied up, so he can't hear what the hell they're saying. So hey, not sure what company that was, but send me the link. Oz then shows the Maronis that he has their child using a Polaroid with the newspaper. And after they're shit talking him, he might speak their language or at least understand it a little bit. That's how he was valuable in the Batman, right? Because he spoke Spanish at least well enough to know between L and La. And maybe, especially with the idea that since the beginning of this show, he's been in both camps. If TikTok is real, this is where they you want to impress me, put Duolingo in the next episode and be like, hey, Vic, don't you know I actually speak Maroni. I got a 53-day streak on Duolingo. You got to be smart, kid. You got to know when these people are trying to turn on you. But anyway, they're talking about turning on him, and he instinctively interrupts them at the right time. He tells the guard at one point, red jacket, which clearly is going to be the code for what happens later. I hope that red jacket didn't include the instructions of, hey, why don't you tell them who sent you? Because that was an epic failure, very stupid move, maybe by Oz, definitely by the person. All right. He's gonna get me, Vic. I definitely have not been purposely trying to find more moments for me to do an Oz impression in this show. That is not, definitely has not happened. Not the British. Yeah, leave, leave the redcoats out of this. Hey, I want you to betray him. Give him the old redcoat. We're going full Benedict Arnold here, Vic. All right. Back to the show. So from there, we see the cops talking to Sophia, and just when you thought I was done doing voices, we've got Commissioner Bach back, you son of a bitch. I can't do that guy's voice. I don't know how he can do his voice. All right, props to him for having one of the most recognizable voices in all of acting. He's the Commissioner Bach, and he makes a house call, kind of hinting that he might know what Sophia's been up to. Sophia talks about it's odd for him to be there as the chief of police. Obviously, she knows who is in her father's pocket, and talked about them sharing photos of the crime scenes and stuff, which would be something if it got out that I'm sure would cause an uproar. I think that is a nice detail of the show where, again, social media is a part of it, but the idea going back to the Riddler's initial plan in the Batman, that it is very cognizant of the real ways you could blackmail people. Sort of, the boys, especially in the early running, would do that same thing, just knowing that sometimes just that perception from the public could be what's really the most important thing. So she's kind of letting him know uh, that she's got some dirt on him in a sense too. So that kind of ends with really a nothing. It's just sort of a standoff. It's the end of the pay-per-view when the challenger walks into the room and stares them eye to eye. But nothing's happening here between those two. Not yet, not now. But we do get some hints towards what's going to happen. I prefer Sophia when she's called Miss Falcone. And after she gets out of that conversation, we see Sophia torturing Johnny Vitti until he talks his way back into being useful, at least in the short term. As Shadow says, Sophie is unhinged and I love her. Dude, yes. I fully understand Julian Rush at this point. All right. I get it. Which we'll talk about here soon. Anthony, what's up, man? Good Sunday morning. Just dropping by to say hi. I enjoyed the most recent Agatha All Along episode. Patty Lapone brought it. I hope that somehow Agatha and Billy bring the coven back. And Shadow says the actress who plays Sophia is absolutely amazing. Yeah, was it Kristen Milotti? She is killing it. For those of you who joined us late, when we're done, go back to the intro if you'd like. We have a clip of her doing ASMR. Don't ask me about that. I don't know. But she was holding Batman comic books and tapping on them for ASMR. But she talked about how she's been obsessed with Batman since she was 7 years old and has always wanted to play a Batman villain. And I feel like that comes out. Like, this is clearly someone who enjoys coming to work every day, unlike John Turturro, who could not get himself there mentally to play that role of Carmine Falcone. So I do think Sophia is killing it. As far as all the characters go, outside of Oz, she is a character that I really hope is in future installments of the Batman, whether it's the sequel or whether they stay down this television path and she gets something else. But it has been phenomenal because the way this thing goes and what it leads into with her getting Johnny to get the family together. She talks about how none of those people cared about her, about them. And she really immediately, she's just like, yeah, I killed him, which Johnny's freaking out about. Probably not because he's worried about her. He's just like, that was the last piece of leverage that he had. So he's probably starting to realize the score in that moment. And he keeps trying to tell her not to be too hasty. And then she puts him out to pasture right there in front of everybody, which is I think the final power move. And if that didn't do it, the bag of cash certainly would. And this is again where I will put on my Screen Crush hat and say, the bag of cash was very reminiscent to 1989's Batman when the Joker threw cash from a hot air balloon and the citizens of Gotham greedily scooped it up like a bunch of pigs that they are. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, they are very, very eager to take that money. So their allegiance has been bought. Sophia proving that her father was absolutely correct when he wanted to make her the boss before she found out too much about him and he had to get rid of her. So to me, a bit of theory time here. I see it being, I think she's the best candidate to be the mob boss of Gotham going forward. Maroni's family is all but gone. We'll talk about that and how Oz is stupid about that as well. But again, Oz is just too easily manipulated by his own emotions, which we see time after time in this episode. That it really is feeling like she's the best villain, and this whole Julian Rush thing could be a tie. Is Doctor Hugo Strange, the guy behind all of this? What's going on? Is he going to be his own character? That could be cool too. Sometimes, as Batman fans, we may forget how many really beloved side characters got brought in via the animated series and then become established in the comics. So maybe we're going to get somebody who's new, who's going to fit into something, and then we'll get some comics about it later, and we'll never remember a world where there wasn't a psycho named Julian Rush here to serve under the hangman. But that whole thing's getting interesting because Julian shows up and tells her he knows it was her and that he wanted to feel that release as well. And this dude's we knew this dude was wacky, but I don't know. He's kind of a creep, but he's on her side now, and she will be the head of the Gigante family, which we mentioned was foreshadowed when she said, I prefer Sophia. We see that her mother's bedroom. Oh, you know what? While we're talking about her mother, I have to go back, but we see that her mother's bedroom was left intact for the most part. She grabs a fur from her mother's closet, and now she's the head of the Gigante family. When Johnny Vitti was very, I don't know, stupidly trying to save his own life, it was a very dumb approach, I thought, for him to he starts off smart. He's telling Sophia information about her mother, which is probably stuff she would want to know. If he's the only one who has it, good reason to stay alive. Says that Sophia's mother was going to leave Carmine, and that's why he had to kill her. And this is where he screws up. The only reason she came back was because of you fucking kids. Like, dude, this woman literally has you tied up. You are bound and gagged with a horse's bit. Like he's champing at the bit literally over here. She's dumping cold water on you, and you're like, yeah, and it's your fault your mom died. My man? Hello? Why is everybody so fucking stupid today? All right. But he somehow talks his way into staying alive long enough. But of course, we've already talked about how that ended. But she gets a little more backstory on her family. And so to go back to Oz and Victor, Victor shows up. He's got to take care of Oz's mother. Again, like we see how bad it's getting. The stove is on. I think the fridge might be open. She thinks Victor is Oz. And when he lets her know that he's not Oz, she calls him a stranger. So she also just doesn't remember that Vic has been there before, has no idea what's going on, is really a danger to herself at this point. And Victor brings her to Calvin's apartment down in their part of town, which again has been just completely destroyed. What's that? Squid, I think, that the gangster, his buddy's cousin, that's an evil dude, is running around. It's like a scene out of an early Mad Max movie. They're just going into buildings, fucking shit up. And so luckily, somehow, Victor, it's like one of those really annoying missions in a video game where you have this stupid AI that you have to protect, but they can't shoot, they can't do anything but get in the way. And you got to deal with what they're doing while you're trying to solve the mission. Vic is living that. He's living a bad Metal Gear level right now. She's out there playing with the ornaments on the cars and shit. And he's trying to get her. He's like, oh, this is a sneak mission. God damn it. Come on. We're never going to S rank this. And they survive. They get to Calvin's apartment. That's going to be their short-term hideout for the time being. Great call by Vic. Really using his now. You're using your head, Vic. It's very smart. And then we get the big scene, really the probably the most memorable of the whole episode, when Oz meets up with Nadia, and the idea is they're going to trade Taj for the mushrooms, because the Maronis, a lot has happened since we were really last back in the present day, because the episode right before that was all flashback for Sophia. So for those who forgot, when Oz and Sophia got captured by the Maronis, they also took all of the mushrooms. So the deal is trade you your son for the mushrooms. But Oz was never, ever going to hold his end of that deal. And that's important for us to note. There's plenty of hints towards it. Obviously, Taj is just covered in liquid. He's covered in gasoline and bound in a way that the liquid's dripping off of him, and it keeps a solid line. So he's got the fuse there. And his mother, not knowing, or maybe not caring, that he's covered in the gasoline, because you'd imagine you could smell it. She hugs him, even though he's shaking his head no. And even after they have the mushrooms, now admittedly, there is a gunfight between him and the Maronis, but they win that. The Maroni thugs go down. They could just leave, but Oz was never going to leave. We see him pull the lighter out pretty early, and when he douses those bad boys, you see a little smirk go on his face. Now we've got there on the left, that's him right before he does it, but as they start to cackle or crackle, I guess it's the other show where people are cackling. Um, you see the smile come across his face, and you see that Oz really does have this issue where if you fuck with him, you have to go, and he enjoys it. And we also see throughout the episode how he can portray people just looking out for themselves as turning on him. It's the worst possible combination. He's not somebody that anyone would ever want to have in their lives. He's a gaslighter, man, literally. And he's going to light the gas on fire. And as he sits there like a fucking psycho, just wouldn't you know, smoke sets off fire alarms. And although he was warned, as anyone who would know a thing or two about mushrooms or even just plants in general, they usually have a specific environment that they need to be within to continue to grow. And he was warned that rapid temperature change would mess these mushrooms all up. But that's exactly what happens. The anti-fire measures go. I don't know if it was just a extinguisher fluid, whatever the hell it was. It froze and destroyed all but 2 buckets of those damn mushrooms, and all because they had wronged Oz and they had to go. And it wasn't even necessarily about they had to go. When the Maronis were going to kill Oz, they had him on his knees. They were going to shoot him in the head. All things considered, that's a much better way to go than being burned alive in a parking garage. So it's sort of like, did the punishment fit the crime with this one? Like, this was clearly a message, but one he enjoyed sending. And then he follows that up when he hears from Sal Maroni, and he finds out that his assassination attempt went wrong. The dumbass who's already made multiple mistakes. Maroni should have never known that easily that it was you. I mean, obviously, put 2 and 2 together, there's only going to be a couple suspects. It's either going to be Oz or Sophia. But still, you don't have to fucking tell him. And then when he calls you to say that I got out, thanks for the keys, you say, why don't you call your wife? Dude, he was going to figure that out eventually, but you could have bought yourself more time. This is a guy who this whole time has been playing people against each other and making the right decision at the right time, at least for his needs. And in this episode, every time he gets frustrated, he just fucks it all up. He can't think straight. And that's what continues here. And we get, again, as we stick with Oz here, we have that scene with Eve where he says, this is where we're going. And she finally puts her foot down and says, well, I'm not going with you. I can't go with you. And he takes that as a betrayal. And we see the same, or maybe a similar thing with Victor, right? Like, let's not forget, Victor initially was here so that Oz wouldn't kill him. He was stealing the rims off of Oz's car, and Oz has forced him to be here, even to the point when Vic wanted to leave. He held a gun to his head and said, hey, is this what working for me feels like, huh, kid? You really hurting my feelings, Vic. I loved you. I thought you was like my son. Is this what it feels like? He's screaming at him with a gun pointed to his head. And so he's forcing these people to be here. And then when they can no longer deal with the situation or have to take off, then that's this betrayal. And we see the way he's acting with Eve. I wonder if he is correct that maybe there's someone else in the story that she's also involved in, whether it be if there was a moment previously where it seems like she's definitely servicing a cop because he asked for an alibi and she says, I can only do it from this time to this time. That tells me because there's someone in the police station that would be able to confirm, hey, wait a minute, He wasn't here there because I was way. I mean, never mind. But I think that she probably has somebody that is not a friend to Oz that she could also turn to that may help her meet her untimely demise. But seeing the way he lashes out at Eve again makes me think that that's going to be the way the cookie crumbles for Victor. And at the very end, we have Sophia taking out Sal's men and meeting with him, and it doesn't go maybe the way you initially would think it would go. As she tells Sal his family got it right, he's still there, mourning his family, whereas her father was actively willing to kill his own and have his family lie about his children just so he would not have to face any consequences. So it it seems that they are going to team up to take down Oz, and that is where we leave things here for the Penguin. Again, uh, my thoughts, just some of my favorite television I've seen in a really long time. I would enjoy this whether it was Batman or not. It doesn't I don't need it. I don't need any of the Bruce Wayne stuff. I barely even need the references. This show could have been called Oz, and after word of mouth had gotten out and someone had convinced me to watch it, I would be just as locked in. The Batman stuff is all just bonus points for me. So, highly recommend the show. Let me know if you all have thoughts. I think I got everything out here as we were going through step by step. Again, there was some stuff in the score that I loved, and we really get to see Oz's fall. If any of you were rooting for him, it's sort of that Breaking Bad moment. I think this is the part where you really, after this, you really can't. I don't know. Maybe there will be other people that pop up, or you will root for seeing Oz to come out of this alive. But it feels like at this point, um, the characters to root for are Victor and Sophia. Despite her deranged stuff, a lot of that stuff still feels pretty valid when you have the. I've seen that argument about this very episode, right? When we're talking about Oz as this psychopath. What about last episode? What about what Sophia did? Well, that at least we saw the crescendo of all of the bullshit. Not to suggest anybody should follow her footsteps if they're mad at their family, but what they did to her, it felt very earned the way that they all had to go. Again, not so sure that Taj especially had earned his fate. Maybe you can make the case for Nadia, but you can't really make it for Taj. And Oz is full on in the deep. He's in the shit now. Charles Barkley. It's like Garfield minus Garfield. Kind of works better without him. I felt the same way about Carol Baskin. She did nothing wrong, but if she did, good for her. that, that bitch Carol Baskin. Oh my god, dude! I haven't thought about Joe Exotic in at least a week. So that was a good callback. But yes. So interesting to see where things will play out. Will the Maronis and the Gigantes get together? Is it going to be Oz that takes the whole city down? Right now, you have a very interesting situation with the three families because the Falcones are completely gone, and the Gigantes right now are run on a combination of fear of the hangman after seeing on the news what she did and then seeing in the room what she did to conceivably like the one guy left that could provide any value to her. So between that and the money, those guys are bought and paid for, but they may not necessarily be loyal. And you're probably going to have the same situation with Oz. And then you have the Maronis who just don't really have anyone to help run it. It's probably all of their men will be incredibly loyal to Maroni still, I would imagine. So I, the the backstabbing, I believe, has not hit its peak yet. We are not done seeing these people make moves on each other. But a final note here that I almost forgot to mention is that Oz is playing this with his crew as if he knew about them, as if this is all kind of part of the plan. He's, oh, those guys never did shit for us. Uh, But then when they're done, he pulls Victor aside and is like, "Hey, Sophia, she can't be trusted. She might come after us." So will that blow up in his face too? Like he probably, I don't even think I can say probably. Outside of having the mushrooms, he doesn't have anything he can offer those men that Sophia doesn't have more of. She has more money. She probably has more influence right now, and she's definitely going to have it after making this deal with Maroney. So things could get worse for Oz as this goes. He's got his cool little lair, which fucking badass down there in the subway. Love that for him. But this could be very short-lived for Oz when he's got those two coming down on him. So that is going to wrap it up for me here, folks. I've got 35 minutes to set my fantasy football lineups. Thank God there weren't any games overseas today. No disrespect to our wonderful friends across the pond, but I'm tired of waking up at 9 a.m. to set my lineup for a Jaguars Patriots game. Nobody cares. Like, they're two of the worst teams in the league, and I got to start work early for that. Get out of here, man. Stop it. Or if you're going to do it, don't do it for a goddamn month straight. Anywho, it's all over now, and I feel much better. And I hope you enjoyed your Sunday morning. Thank you, Headbug. Appreciate that. I am going to get back to work on some more videos. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. If you saw our short yesterday, the next video will be me talking about how the Feelies are here. Brought to you by A24. You will be able to smell a scene coming up in Hugh Grant's upcoming movie Heretic. Had a little too much fun making the intro, so the rest of the video will be done today. Double dipping on a Christmas preview review. We'll have Red One and Hot Frosty coming out. Okay, I told you this was coming. We had a good run of some great trailers where we were just saying nice things about everybody. So we have to stay balanced, as all things should be. So we've got a couple of real fun preview reviews coming up. Also going to do one with James about the Thunderbolts. We got that preview review coming. And don't forget, bonus episode of Han this week. So we will be going live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So plenty more from us coming, but I'm going to give you back the rest of your Sunday afternoon. I hope you all have a great time. Thank you to everyone who has hopped into the chat. I'm going to shout you all out individually now, but if you're leaving, if you're on your way out, goodbye. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Shout out to Harles, Barkley, Headbug. We've got Shadow Humor in here. Shout out to Shadow. Shout out to Darth Maul. Advent, good to see you again, sir. Hope you're doing well. Stu made an appearance, and I believe we got to Anthony here at the end. Good afternoon now to you, Anthony. I'm glad you're enjoying Agatha. And yeah, Patty Lapone is killing it, man. Shout out to Carol Baskins. Probably didn't do it right. Anywho, I am now out of here. We're going to see you all another time. Peace out, dweebs.